In this video, we're going to show you how to install the CV axle on your Ford Taurus located behind your rear wheels. Using a 19mm socket, loosen and remove the lug nuts. With the lug nuts removed, you can now grab that wheel and remove it and set it aside. Remove your brake caliper. There are two 13mm bolts, one on top, one on the bottom. You can use a wrench or ratchet. Loosen and remove these bolts and set them aside. Using a small pry bar, you can go between the caliper bracket and the caliper and gently pry this out. You can work it from the top and bottom. Once you remove the caliper, you want to pull it back to the coil spring on the back side and secure it over there. On the back side of your caliper bracket, you're going to find two bolts. You want to go ahead and loosen and remove these using a 15mm shallow socket. Once you have those bolts out, you take that caliper bracket and set it aside. We're going to use a 32mm deep socket to loosen and remove our axle nut. Now we want to go ahead and see if your axle pushes in, and ours is stuck in the splines here onto the wheel hub. So you want to use a heavy duty punch, put it in the center. And we want to break that free. Now you may not be able to see it, but our axle is moving in and out here a little bit. If I reach around the back here, normally you can push these in and out a little bit, so it might be stuck a little bit, but it is moving. And that's the key thing. Once you've done that, let's go ahead and move to the back side. We'll go ahead and remove our ABS speed sensor. There's an 8mm bolt holding this in place. So we're going to use our socket, our extension, and this is just our 1/4-inch ratchet. Okay, loosen it and remove this bolt. We're going to use some penetrant here to try and spray around here because we now need to remove our sensor. If you follow the line over here to this bracket, we can go ahead and slide this up and out. You don't want to grab the wire and pull it up and out. So if you work on both sides and gently wiggle this up, that'll free that. You should be able to spin this in place to rock it back and forth and then pull it out. Sometimes it gets stuck in there. That's why we use that spray lube on there. Sometimes you can grab this here and just gently rock it back and forth, twisting it up and down. You want to just be careful and gently wiggle this around until we can get this free, and then we'll pull that out. So we have this moving a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach down and kind of twist this a little bit more and spin this sensor out. Now that we have that out, we're going to set that aside. Disconnect the upper portion of our sway bar end link. It's going to be a 17 millimeter hex head on the link end here, and on the outside is a 15 millimeter deep. I'm going to use an extension to get us past the rotor. Let's go ahead and remove the 18 millimeter nut off of your lateral link. Now in our case here, the ball joint shaft here, or the shaft joint, is spinning with the nut. So what we're going to do is we're going to tighten it and work it off that way there. You can, if you want, hold the end here with a wrench or pliers and go ahead and remove that nut. Here we go. Go ahead and tap this. On the upper portion here, we need to remove this nut and pull the bolt out. 21 millimeter box end wrench on the bolt side, and we're going to use a 15/16 on the nut side. If you push in on the knuckle inward, you may be able to wiggle that bolt out. There you go. Now I want to go ahead and secure our caliper up and out of the way because we're going to be pulling everything out here. And we don't want to cause this to drop down, causing pressure pulling on this flex hose. So you can use a tie strap, you can use a securing strap, a rubber strap, whatever you might have, to go ahead and pop that up out of the way. Remove the lower link arm bolt. It's a 15 millimeter box end on the bolt side, and we use an 18 millimeter deep socket on the nut side. Now this bolt itself does not have the threads running to the end. It's actually smooth. Go ahead and tap this bolt. Now you want to be careful here because when this bolt comes out, it could be preloaded a little bit and you might have this jump a little bit. Now I just switch over to a swivel here. Using an 18 millimeter socket, loosen the bolt for your shock. Now if we loosen this, we should have some flexibility here. We're going to go ahead and see if we can work that axle a little bit. Now in some cases, you can go ahead and pivot this down enough to get that axle out. If it doesn't, we can go ahead and continue to remove this bolt here. Now if you find you have to remove the shock bolt, before you go any further, make sure you put a jack underneath the control arm. This is the last line of defense here before this spring pushes this control arm down under pressure. It might not be a lot of pressure, but you do want to go ahead and put your jack underneath here and support that gently. Let's go ahead and loosen and remove that bolt completely now. slowly let this drop. I'm going to put a little bit of pressure there. Let's go ahead and pull out on the knuckle here. We're still not getting the flexibility we need out of this here. So our last bolt is our lower control arm bolt here. Let's just loosen this here and we should get that pivot out that we need to remove that axle. Using a 21mm socket, let's just loosen this bolt. And there's the movement we're looking for. With this out here, we need to focus our attention on the inboard portion of the axle. Let's go ahead and pop that out. Now on the inboard portion here, our CV axle goes into the rear diff. Now what we want to do is we want to grab a pry bar. We want to go right here and right on the diff, and we just want to kind of give this a little bump. And there it is. It just popped out. Just a little C-clip that holds it in place, and we're going to gently work that out. Now it's going to get to a point where you can literally just grab that axle and pull that out. You can remove that. Now once this is out, I'm gonna pull this out, set that aside. You want to pay attention to the rubber seal right here. Now I'm gonna go ahead and just take a rag and I'm gonna wipe on the inside portion of it. Now, the key things that you're going to pay attention to, if this is all damp down around the bottom of this differential, that's telling me that this rear axle seal is worn out and needs to be replaced. Don't skip that. Don't just pop in an axle and hope for good things. You're going to want to take care of the seal, otherwise you're going to lose the fluid here and you're going to ruin a differential. Fix the seal if you need to, and then put in the new axle. And we're going to take our axle, feed that up and in and into the differential. Is just sliding and I rotate it so that these splines line up. And then once we have that in so far, I'm going to go ahead and use a rubber mallet and I strike the end of my axle here to go ahead and pop that in. You're going to see that snap in. And once you see that that is fully seated in there, we're good to go. Let's go ahead and fold up our knuckle here, line up our axle. You do have to maneuver a few things around here to get it to pop up. We have our shock here. We need to twist around, push this up and in, wiggle that axle so it comes through on the front side. Let's go ahead and raise up our jack underneath so that our shock lines up here. Now we did go ahead and put some blue Loctite on our threads. Push that in. Just gonna grab our ratchet and our socket and we'll go ahead and run that in. Now we're not gonna tighten this down yet. Ideally what we're gonna do, once that bottoms out, we're going to loosen that just a couple threads. When you're assembling your suspension components, all of your bushings and everything, they're kind of set in a particular position. Now, if you tighten everything with it in its drooped position and then you compress the suspension, well, everything is going to have a bind on. It's going to twist as it pushes up because it's locked into place. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to run all of our hardware in, and we're gonna leave it just a tad bit loose. Then we're gonna use our jack, and we're gonna raise up our suspension to what we call the neutral ride height. This is if you had the wheels on the vehicle and it was on the ground and your suspension was compressed to a neutral ride height. Then we're gonna go ahead and torque everything, our lower control arm, our shock, our upper control, all of these components so that they're locked in the neutral position. That way there the suspension can freely travel in that ride height. Now that we have our shock bolt in, we're going to lower our jack. We're going to reposition it underneath the knuckle. Now as the bolt goes in, this arm here needs to get twisted a little bit because the knuckle itself is not in line with it. So I'm going to use a pry bar, and I'm going to come up inside the fork of the arm. And I'm going to go ahead and rotate this. Go ahead and tap that bolt in. Once that bolt is through, go ahead and install the nut on the other side. We can now go ahead and lower this down a little bit. I'm going to reposition my jack underneath the knuckle here. Now that we have that front link arm bolt in, we're going to go ahead and reposition our jack to underneath our control arm. And then we're going to raise up the entire control arm so we can line up the upper portion of our knuckle to the upper control arm. Just going to raise up our jack. There we go. Go ahead and line up that bolt. Pop that in. Let's go ahead and install the nut on the other side. Let's go ahead and raise up our jack and get our suspension into its neutral ride height. So we're going to raise this just until the vehicle starts to come off of our stands. Let's now go ahead and tighten our hardware. Tighten your shock bolt. Tighten the lower control arm to knuckle bolt. Tighten down the forward lower link arm bolt. Tighten down the upper knuckle bolt to control arm. Now at this point, we can go ahead and lower our jack from underneath our suspension. Let's install our sway bar end link here. Use our 17 millimeter on the inboard portion and snug this down. Let's go ahead and install the link arm bolt here. Now this is going to require a little persuasion here because everything is kind of out of whack right now. But once we get that started, I'm going to go ahead and grab our rubber mallet and tap this back in. Now we're going to use our pry bar here. We're going to go up by the shock area and we want to get some leverage here. And we want to go ahead and bring our knuckle out towards us. And we should be able to work that down inside. Here we go. Now I'm just going to give it a little tap here with our mallet. Bring our bracket up. Let's go ahead and get that nut started. Let's go ahead and snug it down. Torque down our nut here to 96 foot-pounds. Here it is. Go ahead and torque down your lateral link nut here to 59 foot-pounds. There we go. Go ahead and torque down your shock bolt to 129 foot-pounds. Torque down the upper sway bar nut here to 41 foot-pounds. Torque down our lower knuckle to control arm bolt to 196 foot-pounds. There it is. Let's torque our upper knuckle bolt here to the control arm, 148 foot-pounds. Once that's torqued, go ahead and lower your jack. I'm going to go ahead and get our caliper bracket installed. I'm going to get the upper one started. Then we'll go ahead and get the bottom one started. I'm going to go ahead and run these down as far as I can by hand. Pop the ratchet on there, we'll snug those down. Let's go ahead and install your brake pads. Set that into place. Get these bolts started. And our slide pin is here is rotating, so we're just going to grab our wrench. $15mm. Go ahead and gently snug that down. And snug that one down. Go ahead and install the axle nut. Tighten that down. Now let's go ahead and torque it. Install 2 lug nuts. Make sure they're side by side. And thread them down a bit. I'm going to use a pry bar. This is going to be used to lock that wheel in place while we go ahead and torque the wheel axle nut to 258 foot-pounds. Once that's torqued, remove the pry bar and the lug nuts. The lug nuts are used to protect those threads. grab your wheel, get that put onto the studs. Now we're going to go ahead and install all of our lug nuts by hand, and once we get them started, we'll go ahead and snug them down. When doing this here, it's preferred if you do it in a crisscross or star pattern. Now let's go ahead and torque them down. Now let's go ahead and torque down our lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds. Now preferably you want to do this in a crisscross pattern. And you're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.